it looks like that vegetable inflation, the massive inflation that we keep talking about in vegetable prices, in pulses, in all the other essential items that we consume on a day-to-day basis, could come down come September, which is just about 7-8 days from now.
Yeah, because he's pegging his hopes on that the fresh vegetables are coming into the markets now. The prices have come down of at least the two triggers, whether it's onions or tomatoes. These two have come down, and they are likely to come down more. Price caps, export curbs, all of that have been imposed by the government, and the weather probably will not go worse than this that it has. So yeah, the core inflation figures are still down. Only the headline inflation figures were up. Those are projected to ease out in the months to come, as near as September.
As near as September. I mean, honestly, very promising, but we don't know how much of that is possible, because coming back to some of the essentials that we were discussing here for far too long now, tomato included, onions prices are inching up day by day. Tomato, I think it's still as good as what it was about a month ago.
As good or as bad?
Or bad. I mean, whichever way you'd like to put it, but it's as worse as it was about a month ago. So essentially, essential items are still very dear, very costly, and we're talking about vegetables and pulses. And as Amit pointed out, it's the headline inflation, food inflation, that continues to be a problem, because core inflation is still well within the targets. Do you think there's any merit to what is coming from RBI Governor's mouth at this point in time, or is it just a lot of speculation and perhaps not based on actual data?
Or unfortunately, the monetary policy can do zilch when it comes to supply side constraints on essentials like vegetables. It is very, very directly linked to A, monsoon, and B, logistics. Right. Now, monsoon is something that nobody can control. Yeah, well, of course, I mean, countries can come together and work on a climate change, slowing down of climate change action agenda, COP25, COP27, Vision 2050, Vision 2070. None of that is going to bear any fruits or vegetables, as we may want to call it, immediately.
Not immediately.
Right. That's a long-term vision. Yes, government should work towards it, but any monetary tightening or loosening is not going to impact supply side constraints of vegetable prices, right? Vegetable prices, the inflation of vegetable prices was as high as about 37%, and food inflation, vegetable inflation about 12, 13, 14%, right? Now, yes, there is going to be fresh infusion of crop. There were unseasonal rainfalls and there was crop damage. Add to that, fuel prices also hovering in the $90 per barrel region. Logistics costs also go up. So put together, the direct impact because of short supply and higher fuel prices, higher than average fuel prices at about $90 per barrel, resulted in the prices of vegetables going up, right? RBI Governor is saying that, core inflation is something we can manage. And he's right. There has been a reducing trend over there. We have seen last data when it came out on core inflation it was still sticky. It was about 4.9%, good 0.9%, above the RBI's mandate of keeping it at 4%. Right, but it has the 2% headroom. So it is squarely within that headroom of, between 4 to 6%. So 4.9, and that trend has been, you've seen the trend actually reducing. So over time, without any further monetary policy tinkering, it should come down to a more reasonable 4%, 4.2, 4.5% level. But on the supply side, there's nothing that RBI can do. Of course, there are fiscal measures being taken by virtue of export bans. In fact, the Nasik onion mandi, which had decided not to put up their stock for auction, has also yesterday ceded and said that, yeah, okay, we will participate in the auction. So I think the farmer community is also coming together to realize that, you can't let your stock just go waste. So you have to sell it. And there is going to be a floor cap also being agreed upon, that beyond this, there isn't going to be any reduction. Right. So you won't let the farmers run into losses. You will try to, step in and ensure that there isn't any hoarding happening as well. But overall, I think it is completely dependent on monsoon. RBI should continue to work towards a 4% core inflation target, and headline inflation in election year, of course, is going to be problematic for the government. But beyond what is being done already, I don't think any other tinkering should be done.
Headline inflation has been a problem for this country at least the last 2 years. It peaked last year at 7%. So last year the problems were slightly different, apart from the monsoon.
So, of course, you had the war, you had oil prices.
So they have a lot on their plate, but the monetary policy, which has been tightening, not as much as the US, has bared fruit at least as far as the core inflation is concerned.
Absolutely.
But more administrative actions perhaps needed if the inflation were to ebb out by September, which
But
is
again,
just
the
about
challenge
7
is
days
that,
from now.
Yeah, but again, Shweta, the challenge there being that any further tightening in any case is going to hamper credit offtake for the private sector, right? And any loosening right now is going to increase the core inflation back to the 4%, 5%, 6% and beyond. I mean, it hasn't touched 4, but 6% and beyond range, which again is bad news. So, at higher rates, companies are not going to go and borrow and not invest. So, it's definitely a tricky situation for the RBI.
Very tricky for the RBI,
that's the
but
nature of
perhaps,
the
as I
job.
said, that more administrative action perhaps from the government, which I am sure also eats tomatoes and onions in their homes. If I were not to offend anyone and say that, it is an essential item, everybody consumes it.
And does get discussed
maybe
at,
not
does get discussed.
Maybe not at
family, dining
McDonald's.
tables.
Yes, and I'm sure it gets discussed at dining tables without offending perhaps anybody when I say that.